How's it going, my G's, and welcome to Pimp My Preset Part 2. This is a Part 2 video to Dash Glitches video, which you can find linked above. And it was a great concept from my man Dash, who thought that I could make some Psytrance presets and sounds for him, which he could improve and contextualize. And in return for me, he would make some drum and bass presets, which I can sort of tweak and share what I would do to them to make them even better and more suitable for drum and bass. So yeah, this is quite an exciting little collaboration that we've got going on here. Really nice to try and make some Psytrance sounds. I'm not sure if I succeeded or not, but anyway, I definitely know that I can tweak some drum and bass presets, no problem. So let's get into this video. Just before we do that, make sure you like and subscribe if you're new. I do a lot of music production tutorials focused a lot around drum and bass, but also I'm interested in sound design as a whole, and that's why me and Dash linked up, because he's also really great at using Vital, so check out his page as well. Anyway, let's get into it. So what we've got is a vocal sample to very slightly process in terms of the timing. Then we're going to move on to sort of arranging the sounds that Dash has provided in Vital to create like a kind of drum and bass loop. And then we're going to tweak each of the three sounds that he's provided: a foghorn, a bass, and like a saw lead. We're going to do a couple of adjustments to each one. Let's get into it. So the first sound that we're going to be dealing with is this vocal sample that Dash has processed, and we've got two versions. We've got a kind of normal processed version and a sort of weird vocoded sound. And I like the lyrics a lot. It's very suitable for drum and bass. So like a fucking demon, blah 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 blah, like a fucking demon. Like a... And then we've got this sort of weird vocoded texture that we're going to use underneath, and I'm sort of just turning that one down and reverbing it a bit to push it more in the background. But the problem with the with the vocal here was the timing. So I've created a sort of drum and bass beat, which you can see up here, and it's very simple. We literally have a kick, a snare, one sort of main hat loop, some sort of distant hats and some distant rides just to fill out the background, and a little clap for a little kind of little cheeky feel. So listen to the drums on their own then. And yeah, shout out to my sample pack. I used most of the sounds from there. You can find that link down below. But anyway, let's continue. With the original samples that Dash so kindly sent, if you play them along with my drums, although they're sort of set to the right tempo, like a fucking demon, blah 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 blah, like a fucking demon. You know, I didn't find they were quite, as tight to the beat as they could be. And so what I went ahead and did was to use the flex mode and just move around the transients of the different vocals so they really snap to the kick and snare. Like a fucking demon, blah 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 blah, like a fucking demon. So kind of more on the beat, at least to my ears. So once we've done that, I'm just going to group these together, and now I'm just going to like turn them down a bit and take out some low end. We can kind of use these as a little bit of a vibe. But now I really want to get into the nitty gritty, which is getting into the Vital presets. So let's go ahead and have a listen to all three of them. So I must say that I was quite impressed by the Vital presets, as they are very characteristic of drum and bass already. And to start off, we have a foghorn here. Really long and lots of reverb on that one, but it's got a good tone. And secondly, we have the demon bass. I love this one. This is my favorite of the three because it's really gritty. It's really sort of tight, and I can imagine we can really easily manipulate this and use it, and it's going to be already quite nice and powerful. So I'm looking forward to playing with that one. Thirdly, we have this sync saw. This is my least favorite of the three. Because it sounds a little bit cheesy or a bit sort of hard style. I don't want to discredit other genres. I mean, Dash is coming from Psytrance, but to me, it lacks that yeah, that darkness for like drum and bass. But it's got all the harmonics there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a couple of things to make it a little bit darker and fit more to our vibe. But what I've gone ahead and done already is I've actually arranged a little sort of melody and loop here. So, you know, the foghorn, it's a short little blast, the reverb tails on, and then the bass comes in as a response, and this is really held down for a long time. So with the call and response, it's not only the sounds are different, and that's why they're sort of dynamic, it's also the length of them. So that the call is a short call, and then the answer is a long. So this is playing with the length of your tools as well. The length of your tools. That was a terrible thing to say. The length of your ingredients. Can help also to get that dynamic contrast in the call and response. And then you can hear these sort of sync saw little one shots that I did. They're a little bit sort of offbeat and a bit random and sort of fitting in the gaps between everything. Especially the first two here, you know, they're really sort of off the beat and a little bit jarring. And this is a great technique for me in drum and bass where you kind of... you take the listener's attention away from a little more simplified pattern of the call and response, and essentially using these little leads that are kind of weird timing. They kind of like make your sort of head be like, oh, what was that? And then you're sort of back to the rhythm again. So it creates just this little element of interest and rhythmic kind of complexity. But yeah, if we play this then with the actual drum beat together. So now let's go ahead and tweak each of the three presets, and we're going to start off by making a couple of adjustments to the foghorn. So there's two things I want to change to the foghorn. Well, actually three. I want to control that reverb because it's a little bit too much mid-range that's eating up the space in the rest of the track. And then I want to add in a little bit of a volume automation that can happen on the reverb. So I almost want to sidechain that reverb. And after that, I also want to just play with the tone of the foghorn and see if we can get it, even more sort of unique and interesting. Because right now it's great, but it's quite sort of classic. And let's see if we can put our own little twist on it. So let's start off with the reverb then. I'm just going to take out, quite simply, on the low end here. I'm just going to take out enough so that the demon bass can really sort of take the space in that part. I find that to be quite a nice balance, and the next thing I want to do is already start to sidechain that reverb, and I can simply do this in the post-processing afterwards. So I'm just going to add on an LFO tool, already set up sidechain to the kick here. And it's just going to sidechain the whole output, including the reverb, obviously. And you can hear it's obviously sidechaining the very beginning, so it's going to take away a little bit of that, that starting sort of attack. But that's fine, because I want that kick to really shine through anyway. So now we've got that pumping sidechain effect on the reverb. Let's have a little listen as a whole now, because it's always good to listen in the mix with everything. We've got that like reverb and sort of length to the foghorn still in there, but we've controlled the mid-range a bit more, taken some of that out, and then sidechained it. And yeah, it's giving a lot more space for the response bass. So I'm happy in that regard. One thing I thought I could try was to maybe add some distortion after the reverb. So let's see how that sounds. Yeah, it gets a little bit more insane, but we could get away with it. Yeah, so this is a bit of a classic trick, sort of distorting the reverb in a kind of foghorn sound. So I think I'm actually quite liking how it sounds, but we're going to have to control it a bit So I've just used the mix in a very small amount here. Yeah, really, really nice there. I really like that. And now one thing I thought of just quickly I could do is I could perhaps modulate a little quick flutter into the sound as well. So why don't we go ahead and do this on a filter here. If I add in a filter, and I'm just going to use it sort of as a low pass, and so we're sort of taking everything out. And then we can just modulate the mix on an LFO to create a sort of volume automation here. So I quite like that. We've got a little bit of an interesting sort of flutter on the foghorn as well now. So what I could do is I could adjust this on the matrix here. So let's set this back to 0, and then add a macro here, place it on here, turn that up, and now when it's off, it won't be active. So we can have a little flutter setting, and we can use this in just certain parts of the foghorn. So let's use it on the second one always, for example. So what I can do is I can quickly draw in some automation just by automating the macro here. So let's start off with it at 0. And then one last thing, we could potentially just apply a little bit more movement and modulation into the sound. And I thought maybe I could add one more, maybe a little envelope actually, perhaps on the mix of this distortion. Let's see if we can get it to move a little bit more. Yeah, that's nice. And perhaps we can add one more little twist. So after much playing around, I decided that I could improve the tone of the sound to make it a little bit dirtier and a little bit more D&B by putting a time skew mode on this square wave here, and just setting this up to about 30%, and then putting this on my little LFO, envelope modulation here. You know, just dirtying up that saw wave a little bit. You can see how the spectral waveform is a little bit sort of dirtier and a bit noisier, but it's still retaining that main kind of square shape. So it's just adding a little bit of dirt into the signal. So at this point, I'm pretty happy that I've adjusted the foghorn and made it a little bit dirty, a little bit more D&B. Made that reverb sing a bit nicer by sort of distorting it first, but also controlling a bit of that low end, and then most importantly, you know, really side chaining it afterwards so it sort of ducks out of the way of the kick. So that's the foghorn pretty much done and dusted. So let's move over next to the demon bass. So when you listen to the bass, you can hear there's a little bit of a reverb that happens after you stop the note sometimes. And that reverb is actually being activated by this lift setting here, which I've never really used, but I believe it's, you know, when you lift your finger off the key on the keyboard, you know, that's going to activate the reverb. But in this case, I'm going to take that off because I want to keep the signal nice and clean and sort of stopping at the end here. So I'm going to take that off, and then we're going to see what we can do to the demon bass to make it even dirtier. So after some playing around, I have decided to change up the vibe of this bass by playing a little bit with the stereo image and also with the tone of the sound over time. So what I've done is two main things to the stereo. I've created a new oscillator to introduce a little stereo width boost at the start, and then I've added a few modulations on this main LFO one here, which kind of goes up over a long time. I've tracked a few things such as the reverb and a little delay and a little extra filter to that to help the bass, you know, change a little bit over time. Because although it was great to begin with, I felt like it lacked a little bit of that progression over time. So because it's quite a long sort of held down note, you know, I felt like it was nicer to, you know, give it a little bit more of more kind of modulation as it goes on. So the main thing I did then, if I just sort of revert to how it was before and how we have it now. Subtle little things, but some really cool little like intricate parts to it. So the first thing I did was add this third oscillator in. And it's a bit crazy because I'm FMing from the oscillator 2, and if you leave it up and hold it down, it starts to get a bit high pitched. You know, as these harmonic series kind of evolve, and you FM them, you know, into this sine wave here, it starts to just get a bit screechy over time. But I'm only going to use the first sort of one. So at the beginning, you know, it's got quite a nice tone on it. So what I've done is I've just tracked the level to an envelope here, put a nice little ramp down. So we just have a little boost of this third oscillator. And this one is unison detuned. So it's got like a nice wide spread on it. So we've got this nice kind of push on the sides. And then it will kind of, the volume will come away. And then we'll go back into like the normal bass. And that will sort of carry on for a while. But then, you know, as that sort of begins to carry on as normal again, then I sort of ramp up a couple of extra effects on the LFO1, which is Dash's main sort of LFO that he's got his modulations on already. And what I've done is I've just tracked the mix of a filter here. So without that, you know, we just kind of tweak the mid-range, take a few EQ points out and have a little boost in the middle. And that's, you know, very, very nice way to just shape the tone of the sound. And then also we bring in the mix of the reverb over time. So it reverbs out a little bit. Where I had the lift mode before, which I switched off. So it went from 0 reverb to like 100% after you've ended the note. Now the reverb is creeping in slowly as the bass, you know, comes to its end. And then I've also done a similar thing on the delay here. So we just got a slight bit of delay coming in at the end as well. The problem with it is here, obviously, now I've got this kind of long reverb tail to my sound, but I'm going to do what I would normally do in real life, and I would just sort of bounce out my new version of the bass here, and then, you know, I can just cut the reverb tail myself and sort of fade it off. So let's do that and listen to how it sounds now in the mix. Now we've affected the demon bass. So you can hear that first gap, you know, maybe we can sort of let the reverb ring out here. But for our kind of lead that we're going to do next, I'm going to leave that gap there on purpose. So I'm going to sort of sharply cut the reverb there. And this is a cool thing in drum and bass as well that we do a lot, is we all have long reverbs on a sound and we'll just cut it out of nowhere just to be like, screw you, you know, no more reverb. You thought it was a big one, it's gone. So we've got a nice loop going on here now. I'm really enjoying it so far. So next up is to process the sync saw lead. So I already have a good idea of what I want to do to this sound. I want to, you know, give it a bit more of an attack, so it's more of a wub rather than like a sharp stab. And then I want to add a phaser filter to give it a nice little neurofunk kind of sweep to the sound. So we'll try both those things and hopefully that'll be enough. So let's start off just with the envelope 1 for the attack. So now I've got a nice little balance with the reverb and the attack. Let's move on to adding a nice filter, and maybe we can do it straight in the effects section here, and we'll choose a negative perhaps. We'll put this on, we'll make a new LFO for this one. we'll leave it on sync mode. Now I'm going to add in another filter before, so we're going to have two doing this sort of similar thing. Let's play it in the mix and see how it sounds so far. It's definitely got more of a neuro flavour, but I still think it's missing a little bit of extra grit. There we go. We add on the smear mode and it gets a little bit dirtier here. I think I've cracked it. So by pitching it a little bit differently, just having it -5 here. So, you know, I always think -5, the same as when you go +7, like a perfect fifth, just an octave lower. It's a little bit working a little bit nicer now. You know, that is a little bit more interesting to me. It's a nicer tone that adds to the kind of dark vibe. So let's have a little listen. What I'll do is I'll just place a little extra splash of reverb on that lead just to polish it off nicely, just with a little bit of Logic reverb here. If we just move this clap to kind of fill this kind of gap that we've made here, I think it's going to be a better spot for it. We don't need the second one because that lead is kind of filling that gap there. So we've done our final adjustments to Dash's presets. Now let's add in the vocal from before, take a final listen to the loop, and why don't you guys leave a comment down below what you think of the final result. I think that sounds really cool. I love what we did with the demon bass in the end, because it was a small change, but it really made an already great preset. You know, that little bit warmer and fatter and wider, which is really what it wanted. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed our little 2-part series with Dash Glitch. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to his channel if you're not already. He's got some really awesome scientific information with using Vital as well. Apart from that, wish you guys a wicked day. Much love. Don't do anything I wouldn't. Peace.